Not my game, but I certainly would like to learn. Do you guys golf?
Does top golf count?
Yes.
Pop stroke?
Yes.
How about putt-putt golf?
There you go. I can do that.
putt-putt.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
I took golf lessons when I was in high school,
too.
but it was so long ago.
Yeah.
I didn't really carry much into adulthood with me.
I wish I could say I did. My dad tried to teach me golf at one point, and then I let it go. I was more into dancing.
It's hard. It's the whole like stiff arm thing. Like I have a really hard. I want to bend. I want to bend like more like a baseball
you've gotta
bat.
keep it.
And you baseball.
And you can't. You're like supposed to.
Yeah.
It's hard
Cross
for me.
your thumbs.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'd like to get back into it. I really would.
Someday.
job.
Someday. I loved the original Happy Gilmore. The one thing I'm sad about is that Bob Barker's no longer with us because he was such an iconic part of that movie.
Yeah.
So it's sad that he's not here to enjoy it.
I know. But
You'll
he
be
lived
missed.
What was he, 99? He was.
Yeah, he lived a good long life.
Good life.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Good Day Orlando Extra, everybody. We're so glad you're with us. We will do it again tomorrow. In the meantime, we're going to
keep
on eating.
That's right. I was just amazed at how much meat and food that they brought us.
I'm going to walk over. Is that okay?
Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
they've got a lot.
Lieutenant Williams is still here. They're cleaning up. Thanks so much, you guys.
Look
This
at
is
the plates they're
amazing.
leaving for our
So
crew,
good.
too. Amazing.
Nice to do that.
So good to
Look at
us.
this. Everybody gets some food. You get a plate. You get a plate. I love it.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer and thanks for joining us live on Fox Local and on YouTube. I want to get you right into this is College Hall at the new College of Florida in Sarasota, where Governor Ron DeSantis is speaking there. You see, he just began a few minutes ago. The placard says Florida #1 again. He is talking about what he says Florida's leadership when it comes to religious liberty. So he is just kind of getting into the meat of his speech here. So let's go ahead and listen in to what he has to say.
Number of state government workers per capita in the entire United States of America. And yet, would you rather get a license here or in New York? Who's going to give you better customer service at the DMV? I don't even think we have to ask that question. Who's got better infrastructure and roads? And obviously, our education success speaks for itself. We've also worked, since I've been governor, to accelerate the repayment early of our state debt. So from the time Florida was a state until I became governor, you take all the debt that was accumulated over almost 180 years, we've paid off over 41% of it just since I've been governor. And by the end of the fiscal year, we will have paid off almost half of the state's historical debt just in my tenure as governor. We also, of course, have no income tax, and so one of the lowest per capita tax burdens of anywhere in the country, and maybe the lowest at the state level, or certainly close to that. We're working on the local taxes with the property initiative that we're going to go to provide folks protection on that front. And then we've also reduced taxes for many, many years, billions and billions of dollars, everything from now when you raise kids, all the baby items are tax-free. So diapers, wipes, all this stuff, no tax on that. We just eliminated a tax, a business rent tax. We were one of the few states in the country that charged commercial rent, and it just didn't make sense. So I think that's going to help our economy even more. So we eliminated that. So on and on it goes. We're leading, but the result is in last year's budget that I signed in 24, we spent less than the previous year, and then in the budget I just signed, we're spending less than in 2024, 2025. So who else in the country is actually reducing spending? And yet we've done that for many years in a row. So all that's great, and we're proud of all that. But today we're here because we get to add another #1 ranking to our list of successes, but this one is really, really meaningful. And not that the others aren't. You want to have entrepreneurship, you want to have a lean government, you want to have a strong economy, but today Florida has earned the #1 ranking amongst all 50 states for protecting religious liberty. And that is something that matters. And if you go back to the founding of our country, religious liberty was basically the first freedom that the founding fathers sought to protect. And of course, religious freedom was part of the reason people even settled in the American colonies to begin with. So this is something that is central to the American experiment and central to our way of life, but it is something that has really been under assault in recent years, particularly over the last decade or so. And I'm just proud to say we have a strong record of protecting this first freedom throughout the state of Florida. I mean, just think of what we did to protect parents' rights in the state of Florida. Parents have a fundamental right to direct the education and upbringing of their children in this state, and that includes religious instruction and students' ability to practice faith. I also signed legislation requiring teachers in classrooms in Florida public school when they start the school day to set aside time for a moment of silence so that students have an opportunity to pray before the day's events happen. In 2020, when COVID-19 hit, you saw a concerted effort to target religious institutions for closure. I remember Fauci was always complaining about churches. And so you had a lot of places around the country, they'd have liquor stores open, but they would have churches closed. Now, we didn't do that in Florida at the state level, but you did have in those early days of COVID, people that were really, I think it was hysteria that was really taking over, that were trying to enforce closures based on local ordinances or emergency declarations, and it even got to the point where there was one local jurisdiction that arrested a pastor in Florida. And so I think it was the next day I signed an executive order overriding all those local restrictions, saying that religious worship, going to church, that is not only an essential activity, in many ways the essential activity, and that is protected in the state of Florida. So not only did we put the kibosh on the movement to try to snuff out religious worship. And look, at first, maybe it was just people were scared, they didn't want to see. But I mean, if you look at how some of these governments clung to this for weeks and weeks and months, whereas they didn't mind that you could have a strip club open, but somehow people going singing in a choir on Sunday was like the big problem. There was an agenda behind that. So we snuffed that out very early on. And it's interesting because people talk about, oh, I moved to Florida, and I moved my business to Florida because I could, and that happens. We actually had people move churches to Florida. We had people that had congregations in places like Washington State that decided they're going to move their church. And look, not every parishioner was in the position to move, but some moved. And then they established a church here in the state of Florida. So we were proud on standing on the front lines during those days. Of course, we have signed legislation protecting folks' medical freedoms, particularly when there's religious objections to certain medications. We've also protected physician freedom of speech and physicians' ability to conduct themselves in a way that's consistent with their religious beliefs, particularly when they're being perhaps forced to perform procedures that they disagree with vehemently. That's something that's been done. We've also ensured that, and it's sad that we even have to do this, but we made sure that you can say a prayer before a high school football game. I mean, imagine that. They used to do that as a matter of course. They ended up in litigation in Florida when I became governor, and we've settled that and making clear that that is absolutely appropriate. And then, of course, after the October 7th attacks by Hamas against Israel, you saw really an ugly wave of anti-Semitism unleashed that really continues to this day. But in the state of Florida, Jewish students did not have to worry about having a Columbia University happen here, and we knew that that wouldn't happen. And we knew that that wouldn't happen because, quite frankly, if any
Governor Ron DeSantis speaking right now in the new College of Florida in Sarasota. We are going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus as he continues to talk about religious liberty and Florida's #1 ranking in it, as he cited just a couple of minutes ago. We are going to, again, take a quick break here. If you'd like to keep watching this, you can do it on our Fox 35 Orlando YouTube page. But we will be right back after a short break.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I want to get you to this news conference going on just beginning outside Orlando City Hall, where we're hearing from Matthew Zaccarino and Luana Gelzer speaking about some concerns they have with the proposed land purchase, they say, that's next to the Pulse nightclub. This is something that's going to be discussed when it comes to the Pulse Memorial. So let's go ahead and listen in as this news conference begins outside Orlando City Hall.
Continued. What the city of Orlando is going to do today is a continuation of a conflict of interest and non-arm's length transactions in the real estate dealings involving the Pulse Memorial, the Pulse land, and the properties adjacent to Pulse. Today, the city is going to vote to approve the purchase of the land adjacent to Pulse, which in 2023 was bailed out, owned by One Pulse, and bailed out by a city-directed local investor in Craig Mateer through a company called RMS Investments. This transaction, directed by the city to have a private entity purchase this land, was a bailout to the financially bankrupt and insolvent One Pulse Foundation. The land is definitely not worth, by any imagination, a broker price opinion, an appraisal will never show that what the city is paying for the land is what it's actually worth. And so this is a continuation for when the city overpaid Barbara Poma and Rosario Poma $2 million for a piece of property that was probably worth less than $1 million. And the city was able to give this bailout to the Pomas during ongoing civil litigation in which families have sued the Pomas for premise liability and negligent security. The Pomas were able to take this overinflated land value and money and escape without having it secured by some sort of lis pendens or a trust account if the families win their lawsuit in 2026. It's scheduled for trial in April of 2026, in which some family members continue to fight for justice in a way that brings some accountability to what happened that night, in which we now know through public records requests, tireless thousands of dollars worth of public records requests, that the city and the Pomas were negligent in their responsibility to oversee the construction of, the renovations of, the Pulse nightclub. It was never supposed to be a nightclub. It was always coded as a restaurant, and yet they were able to operate it for years as a nightclub. So this nightclub, illegally operating as a nightclub, is getting significant bailouts through real estate transactions. And that is what we're opposed to today. Yet another behind-the-scenes dealing, more conflicts of interest, and not arm's length transaction. We know that Craig Mateer is intimately related with the city government structure. The assistant city attorney, he's a client of the city attorney. And obviously we know that the mayor's son works for Mr. Mateer's family foundation company. So we see these entangling alliances. That is a continuation of what happened 2 years ago with the bailout and the $2 million overpayment. And I'm here to stand with families and survivors on behalf of the Pulse Families and Survivors for Justice to oppose a continued bailout of private entities and not-for-profit entities that did not do the families of the Pulse tragedy any justice.
And the reason why, again, Luana Gelzer, the reason why we called a press conference is this is on the consent agenda, meaning we get 3 minutes to speak on this behalf before the city. Anything on the consent agenda is already passing. So we wanted you to know the details of what this transaction is all about. It's wrong, and it's not only like a bailout, it erased $1 million fines also. So why is the city of Orlando constantly bailing out this group, this family? I don't understand it. And what we're saying to you is something's wrong here. Something's wrong. $1 million here, overpriced $2 million. When will we start questioning the behavior of the council and the mayor who sat on the board of One Ports? So don't tell me you didn't know what was going on. You were there. So the cover up continues, and the families itself is tired. This once again was not a licensed nightclub. It was really a dinner theater, restaurant. Question that. We need you to question them. Why the consent agenda? Why you don't want other people to come in and say anything about this? And why are you sweeping it under the rug, hoping nobody will see it? We see you, Mayor Dyer. We see your cover-up. We see your corruption. It's something about City Hall, the 3rd floor, that we need to do something about. And all we're saying to you, the media, is tell the stories of the survivors. Tell the stories of the family members. Tell the stories of the victims. Tell their stories that their death was not in vain and we were never going to allow cover-up again. That's what we need from you. That's what we need. As long as they can get away with it, they will. And clearly, they've been doing it quite well. A consent agenda item to buy property. The rules used to be the mayor couldn't buy anything over $500,000. Now, mysteriously, it's changed to $3 million. So now the city can buy this property back for $1 million from Craig Mateer. Look at the corruption. It just does not make any sense. And all we're saying to you is be the voice of the voiceless. Tell our story. Tell the story that something is wrong here. Any questions?
Did you invite any family members to join you today?
They're going to call in. Dr. Zachary, unfortunately, got hit by a car on his bike, so he's going to call in. A lot of the families don't even live here anymore, so to travel here just to speak for 33 minutes, it's just best to have their voice. But we wanted you to hear what really was happening, because once we go back in and speak, guess what? You won't see that unless you request that tape, unless you request that. None of that will be seen by the public unless we put it out. So that's why we said, we're just going to tell y'all directly. Questions?
And also, family members, members from this Memorial Advisory Committee, you know, all these delays, all the issues in one post. But it seems the city's fine out moving forward getting this memorial done. I mean, is it just an issue with the land deal? Do you think there should be that ultimate permanent memorial in this spot to honor the lives of all?
A combination of quite a few things. Why was it the delay of releasing the picture of the soda machine blocking one of the entrances? Why was that delayed for almost 9 years? So you could say they're moving forward, but thank God from the county that's giving them $5 million, because the city itself don't have the financial wherewithal to do this. But they've had the money. It's just mismanagement of funds. I'd rather for the county to be responsible for doing this than the city of Orlando. They have shown us they're incapable of being transparent.
Because of the fountain, I couldn't hear his question, and it may just be a follow-up. So you're saying you're okay with it happening, you just don't like the way that the city is conducting business to make this happen.
Well, let me. I think the.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the issue really is that that land should have been turned over to either the city or the families and the victims of the tragedy, and it's a continuation of basically propping up the POMAs that were irresponsible, reckless, and negligent. And you know, I understand your questions, which is, well, don't you want a memorial there? Shouldn't there be something? Yes, but at what cost and at what price? The city just jammed in their agenda a 6% real estate tax raise. So again, you see millions and millions of dollars going out the door, and it's where do you draw the line between we desperately want this as a memorial to this always should have been a family-run memorial of the victims and survivors. It should have nothing to do with the cabal inside. It should have been 100% a memorial run by and for the victims, survivors, and the families of the victims of Pulse. And so I think the questions are understandable, but it's, why didn't the city pay $5 million? What if the city paid $10 million? At what threshold would the media and the citizens here would have a problem with the continued bailouts and overpayments that the city is making to a cabal of connected individuals within this structure here? So I think that's more in line with it. And I want to say one more thing. Last month, you all really didn't cover it, I don't think, but I had the privilege, and I will speak today at the council in the afternoon, with Christine Leinenen, who lost her son Christopher at Pulse. She was one of the few family members to come out and speak to you all. And right before she spoke, the day before, I believe you all heard from the mayor, who called Christine a second terrorist. A mother who lost her son at Pulse by a terrorist was called a terrorist by this mayor here because she's asked too many questions, because she hasn't towed the party line. And yes, this mayor and the government here has taken advantage of families that don't speak English, that live out of the country or out of the area, and you don't see necessarily families here, but I can tell you from conversing with, as I speak Spanish, a number of families over the last few months and years, they are opposed to almost everything that this city does, but unfortunately they're kept silent because of the structure, the language barriers, and where they're located. And so I think it's shameful, and how dare the mayor, has he no sense of decency to call a mother a terrorist who had her son murdered by a terrorist?
Where did he make those comments? Where was that?
At the press conference. He gave a 10-minute, he made a 10-minute press conference. You all were there, because the same one that we were at the next day, where he called her a terrorist, and I can provide you all the video feed if you'd like to see it.
I just want to, go ahead, sir, I'm sorry. I just want to also add, when it comes to being responsible, there is no money allocated to run the Pulse Memorial. How is it going to function? They have not set aside any funding for that. So once again, they hope you forget and they move forward, and then we come back and say they didn't put any money there. So we're looking at bad. You know what? I've been a business owner for 40 plus years. If I was running my business the way the mayor runs the city of Orlando, I would be bankrupt, everything else out of business. But because the citizens bail you out, you don't have to worry about where the money coming from. And we're saying you work for us. And we're tired of you mismanaging our money. We're tired. Yes, sir.
What do you want? What is the whole, in the perfect world, what would happen?
That you tell everybody this deal so they can question, Mayor Dye, why did you go about it this way? He doesn't like to be questioned. You've been in office 20 years. You have a pretrial diversion that you wouldn't do certain things. Y'all kind of knew. You know he got removed from office some time ago for voter fraud. So nothing has changed about this man. As long as nobody can question him, he can get away with it, he will continue. Stand up for the people. We need you to be the investigative reporters and tell the truth. Go ask him why he did it that way. Why? To help the family again? To not pay $1 million in fines?
Well, yeah, I think what do you want done? Okay, the land today is being purchased for $1 million. It should be a $300,000, $400,000 transaction. So that's a tangible information that you can take. What is being paid by this city through behind the scenes, non-arm's length transaction real estate deals is overinflated land values through and through. You can hire any broker, a commercial broker, a real estate broker to analyze these transactions. It is consistently overpayment. So what do we want? If the city is forcing the ones to buy this for the memorial, fine, but they should pay a market price based on market forces, not whatever the mayor wants to bail out his friend who he directed to bail out one Pulse that was insolvent and bankrupt. So essentially that's what, to reevaluate the prices being paid by the city government. So that's essentially what is won. It's being bought today for $1 million. The land and the building is maybe worth $300,000 to $400,000.
Anything else? Deadlines?
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
The news conference outside City Hall wrapping up there, where we heard from Luana Gelzer, who is a community activist. We also heard from Matthew Zaccarino in that news conference as well. He is the chair of Citizens Against Public Corruption. They together were representing Pulse Families and Survivors for Justice. This is an organization that we've heard from before, pushing for transparency, they say, and accountability as things move forward with this Pulse Memorial. Some of the deals involved with it. We heard them level a lot of accusations. They expressed concerns about the land acquisition of the land that is next to the Pulse nightclub property. And they said that that is on the consent agenda today, calling that deal wrong, saying they need more transparency about that land deal. You heard them talk about some of their concerns about the cost and that kind of thing as well. Zaccarino saying a few minutes ago, yes, we do want a memorial, but at what cost and at what price, saying he believed it should have been family run by the families of those survivors, not by the city, and expressing a lot of concerns and allegations there. We'll work to get a response from the city to that. I do want to bring up one thing, because Matthew Zaccarino talked about the comment about a second terrorist, and I have the quote from that news conference. It was when the mayor was asked about a family's concerns about some of the investigation into what happened. He said, quote, "I think it was really just one instigator who has not been productive in the process that caused whatever issues there were. So I don't think that's a general feeling among 95% of the families. I get from the rest of the families that they're thankful for what's been done for them and the opportunity to go in the building. There has been somebody that has been very troublesome to staff and really has been a second terrorist." And that's the end of the quote there. Now, at the time, this was as right around the anniversary, right as these family visits were going on at the Pulse nightclub site. We reached out for a response from the city at that point. They said that was not in reference to a family member or a survivor, but on follow-up did not elaborate about who or what the mayor was referring to when he made that statement. And one other note about Pulse, this obviously does all come on the day that the city is also expected to vote today on the construction company, to begin negotiations with the construction company to build that Pulse Memorial on the site of where that nightclub was, once that building will be torn down. Meanwhile, as that was going on, we also showed you a live look inside the Oval Office, and where President Trump meeting with the chief of NATO, the Secretary General, and just announced a couple of minutes ago, actually, that the U.S. is going to sell weapons to NATO for Ukraine to use as its conflict continues with Russia. We're going to step aside, take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Do want to go ahead and get you back inside the Oval Office here, where President Trump meets with the Secretary General of NATO just a few minutes ago, announcing a deal to sell weapons, U.S. weapons, to NATO for Ukraine. Trump saying that he would level tariffs against Russia if there's no Ukraine deal in, I think, 50 days was what he said. Saying that they felt like they've had a deal multiple times, but things have fallen through, and that they're not happy with Russia and with Putin at the moment. So let's go ahead and listen in as this meeting continues live inside the Oval Office of the White House.
To be shipped, they're not going to need them for them. So we're going to work a deal where the 17 will go, or a big portion of the 17 will go to the war side.
Mr. President.
That can be done very quickly.
Mr. President.
Yeah, please.
Could this transaction with NATO be viewed as a step towards achieving peace, letting Putin know that now Zelensky has a little bit more powerful tools in his tool chest, and maybe that brings him to the table to achieve peace? I know that you wanted to do that.
Brian, that's what we've been saying. I think you might have expressed it better if you wanted to.
That's exactly what that's a summary.
That was a nice summary. I think he's done better than us. He's a very good guy, I can tell you that. But no, it's well said. Yeah, I think this is a chance at getting peace. Or it's just going to be the same thing. I have to tell you, Europe has a lot of spirit for this war. A lot of people, when I first got involved, I really didn't think they did, but they do. And I saw that a month ago, and you were there, most of you, many of you were there. The level of esprit de corps, spirit that they have is amazing. They really think it's a very, very important thing to do, or they wouldn't be doing it. Look, they're agreeing to, they're paying for everything. We're not paying anymore. We have an ocean separating us. I said, we have a problem. We make the best stuff, but we can't keep doing this. And Biden should have done this years ago. He should have done it from the beginning, but he didn't. He didn't know he was there. This guy, what a horrible job they did for this country. And I just hope between the border and this and so many other, inflation, what a horrible administration. The worst administration in history, in my opinion. That's not my opinion. I think it's everybody's opinion. But this is something that shouldn't have happened, and we're going to see if we can end it. I do want to make one statement. Again, I said it before. This is not Trump's war. We're here to try and get it finished and settled and whatever. Because nobody wins with this. This is a loser from every standpoint. This was Biden, and this was other people. And it's very sad. It's a very sad situation. This gentleman's doing a great job. I think he's going to get it, and Matt and everybody else that's working on it. I think he'll get this thing over with. Hopefully.
Mr. President.
Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now. And Brooks, we're seeing a lot of those showers and storms this week. It is an impact day today as well.
It is, Garrett, yes, both today and tomorrow, because we've got an area of low pressure. This is located on the Atlantic side. It is not a tropical system right now, but as it moves across Florida into the Gulf, it could become a tropical system later this week. All the while, it's going to bring chances of rain to our area on the increase, and we're going to have, well, periods of rain. It's not going to be an all-day rain, but there's going to be a chance for it all day, especially during the afternoons. This low pressure system is expected to emerge into the eastern Gulf late tomorrow or early in the day Wednesday after moving across Florida, and potentially develop by Wednesday or Thursday. Its track taking it toward the west away from the peninsula part of Florida. It may impact Tallahassee over to maybe Escambia County in the Florida Panhandle, but most likely Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi in what could be a tropical storm. Some of the models hinting that it may be even stronger than that. But locally, what this means for us is that we're going to have a really steamy day today. High temperatures reaching the lower 90s, the kind of weather that you can't help but sweat if you go outside for any amount of time. And then we'll see isolated to then numerous thunderstorms developing. Some could be severe with damaging wind gusts. And we're going to see torrents of rain that could amount to over 2 inches inside of a half an hour for some communities. I mean, it'll really be coming down. Lots of lightning as well. Then it'll take a break and then maybe come back again later at night. Lightning's going to be one of the main threats to life and limb as you're out and about. Outside chance for a little bit of flash flooding in some of the prone spots and damaging wind gusts as well could bring down a couple of limbs. Otherwise, it'll be a hot day today, 93 in Ocala, 92 in Orlando, and about 91 in Titusville. We're going to see temperatures continuing to remain on the hot side as we get into the week. The feels like temperature, this is where, in my opinion, the rubber meets the road. When you factor in the humidity and just the steam, it's going to feel like 107. So even though we got rain in the forecast with these numerous downpours developing, listen to your body. If you're working outside, beyond sweating, you're going to get dehydrated pretty fast if you don't drink a lot of water. 70% chance of rain today, 80% chance of rain for the day tomorrow, and then rain chances remaining elevated as we head toward the end of the week. Yeah, Garrett, some of the long-range computer models are suggesting that this could become Tropical Storm Dexter and make a run for the north central Gulf Coast as a big rainmaker. It's kind of an interesting setup. The Gulf right now is unusually warm by some 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit, which doesn't sound like much. You may not be able to detect it if you were to dip your toes in the Gulf. However, that allows for the atmosphere to support a lot more evaporated water vapor than otherwise. In fact, up to 10% more, which could fill over 1 million Olympic-sized swimming pools. Wow. So as this system rolls up into that really charged atmosphere, it can dump a lot more rain than would otherwise fall for wherever it tracks. And so if we're talking Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, there could be significant flooding late this week.
All right, certainly something to keep an eye on. Meanwhile, we are dealing with those ongoing threats of rain quite a bit this week.
We are, but thankfully not a major wind threat from a developing tropical system, at least not here.
Right. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Garrett.
As we go to break here on Fox 35 News Plus, give you a look at the Atlantic Ocean from our Hard Rock Hotel camera at Daytona Beach. But we're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Weimer, and thanks for joining us on this Monday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Stephan Sterns was in court this morning in Osceola County. The man charged in connection with the sexual battery and murder of 13-year-old Maddie Soto. It was a motion hearing this morning inside the courtroom. This is in connection with the sexual battery trial that is scheduled to begin next week. Sterns facing 60 counts in connection with that case. Jury selection set to begin early next week. So a couple of things to kind of iron out ahead of that trial next week. Sterns was in the courtroom this morning. He was sitting at the defendant's table. His defense team was asking the judge to allow him to not have physical restraints during this trial, and also to be able to use a normal pen to take notes during it. They were also asking the judge to order media to follow certain rules inside the courtroom. And I want to play for you a section of the hearing where they're talking about the physical restraints. You'll hear the judge's reasoning about what he is going to do. Sterns will be wearing some restraints as well. You'll hear the explanation from a courtroom deputy, some of the questioning first from the prosecutor and then from Sterns' defense team. So this is from that hearing in Osceola County just a little bit ago.
What type of devices or restraints are available that would be out of the view of members of the jury?
So each courtroom has two, one device is kept downstairs in the first floor, which is a stun cuff. And in the courtrooms, we have a leg brace.
How is a leg brace utilized by court deputies during the pendency of a criminal trial?
So a leg brace is essentially a long bar. It has 4 straps. And in the center, there's a tab that you can pull so the person can sit down. Otherwise, the bar won't bend. So basically what happens is when the person sits, it bends, but when they stand up, it just locks, and it prevents the person to run away. Well, they would have to essentially hop away because that leg is stiff.
What is the purpose? Let me ask you this. Are there any safety concerns for you as a court deputy in this courtroom should a accused during a criminal trial not be equipped with such a thing as a leg brace?
That's correct. So when any inmate is brought over to the courthouse, they're in restraints, handcuffs, and leg chains. When they're brought over for a trial, they are dressed out in proper attire, suit, and at that point, they're in the custody of the sheriff's office, and we have to maintain a level of safety and security for the inmate and as well for everybody else in the courtroom. So that's the reason why we utilize those restraints. So essentially, this is a stun cuff that's wrapped around a inmate's ankle and is tucked away under the clothing. There are 2 metal pieces here that is close to the subject's skin, and the strap is placed accordingly and wrapped not tightly but snug that it won't fall off. The remote is this right here, which is kept at all times with a deputy within the courtroom. Nobody knows who has it. It's hidden. So to activate this cuff, it's a 2-step process. There's on, and then there's fire. So the device won't accidentally fire on itself. It has to have a 2-step button to fire the device.
Now, you talked about 2 different devices, and you indicated the stun cuff is the intention in this case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that because that's generally what's used in this courtroom, or because of what?
99.99% of the time, we always use a stun cuff.
So I want to talk a little bit about the leg brace, since you did talk about that. Now, this leg brace, this is a longer device. Like it's not as small as the stun cuff, correct?
Right. It's essentially a metal bar. It's pretty long, and it has 4 straps.
And to your knowledge, is that comfortable or uncomfortable?
I would say rather a bit more cumbersome because it's strapped alongside the leg of the person, and if they stretch their leg, it'll snap shut.
So essentially, normal movements could cause it to lock up.
Yeah, as soon as the person stands up, it will lock.
And then the stun cuff, I know you talked about this being a smaller apparatus, that goes typically closer to the ankle, correct?
Correct.
And depending on the type of pants or clothing that is worn by the person, that could affect the visibility of the item.
Yes. So normally, male inmates will always have long pants, and the cuffs go right around it, so you really can't see it.
The court has never had an accidental discharge of the stun cuff. The court has not before had any indications that the stun cuff was visible to the jury. The court before has never been presented with the argument that a defendant was preoccupied by the wearing of the stun cuff, but in this case, Mr. Sterns will not have freedom of movement in the courtroom. The use of the leg brace, the court as well has never received a complaint about the comfort of a leg brace. Because Mr. Sterns will not have freedom of movement, the court's heard no prejudice to the fair trial proceeding to have Mr. Sterns wear a leg brace that would, in the unlikely event that he not be compliant and stand up and make an effort to exit the courtroom, that would lock and give the resources that are on hand an opportunity to intervene. The court understands that these matters should be considered on a case-by-case basis. The court can see no prejudice. The device will not be visible. The court has not before received a complaint about the comfort of that particular device, and the fact that Mr. Sterns will not be permitted to move about the courtroom anyway. The court can't find that would be prejudicial, and the court finds that a consideration of, due to the layout of this courtroom, its proximity to the jury, its proximity to the exit of the courtroom, and the severity of the allegations and the emotional nature of what is surely to be presented, that a leg brace is warranted and will be ordered to be implemented while he is present in the courtroom. We also have a private area that can be outfitted, and I'll address continuing concerns moving forward.
And so that was part of that hearing this morning in Osceola County. Again, that trial is slated to start next week on the 60 counts connected to the sexual battery case of against Stephan Sterns. Jury selection scheduled to begin on Tuesday. Opening statements are expected by the following Friday, so that would be July 25th. Not this coming Friday, but the next Friday. And we will be streaming that trial for you live here on Fox Local and on YouTube, so you can join us for that. We know there's been a lot of discussion in the past weeks and months leading up to this trial. The defense team wanted some certain evidence from his phone, Sterns' phone thrown out. That was a motion that was denied. There was also conversation in the courtroom today about ways to show some of the evidence to the jury, obviously very sensitive nature, and making sure that people beyond that won't be able to see some of that content. So we should also note that Sterns' murder trial still scheduled for September. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Weimer here, and thanks for joining us on this Monday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. Over the weekend, a group of federal and state lawmakers had the chance to tour Alligator Alcatraz. This was a visit that was set up by the state. We know that Florida Democratic members of Florida's congressional delegation had wanted to make an unannounced visit to the facility, but they ended up getting this tour instead. And they said after this tour, they talked about some of their concerns and some of the things they saw that they didn't like. Here is some of what they had to say, starting with Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a Democrat from Florida's 25th district.
I don't see how that could possibly sustain them nutritionally or not make them hungry. And when you have hungry people, obviously their mood changes. I brought a thermostat in with me, a manual thermostat. In the medical intake area, it was 85 degrees. This is inside the so-called air-conditioned tent. In the area, they only let us go up to the entranceway of where they were housing the detainees. They would not let us even a step past the threshold. It was 83 degrees. That was without being all the way in with all of the bodies that were living inside that. The last thing I want to mention is environmentally. They have dug out reclaimed environmental areas and dumped fill on top of them. They say that means that they have not put fill anywhere that wasn't, quote, already developed. But these are, since the 1970s, reclaimed environmental areas, and we have, obviously, Everglades restoration funding coming through here. We could not meet with any detainees. They gave us no specific reason or authority why we couldn't. They refused us access and wouldn't even let us go into the dormitory where they were being encaged. So this is an appalling, outrageous environment to detain anyone. And lastly, they say that there are only people who are in the final stages of deportation here. We have doubts about that. We've heard that there are detainees here who are not criminals, but we're going to need to ask a lot of follow-up questions.
What we saw in our inspection today was a political stunt. Dangerous and wasteful. Evidence of flooding, floors that are only about 8 inches above the ground, temperatures that are hot, and you see the isolation here. Also wasteful. It probably cost double the amount to put this facility here versus right by Chrome. Which begs the question, why are they spending all this money for this location? And when asked, the director answered that he was not given a single reason why they chose this location. Not by the governor, not by the cabinet. And water has to be trucked into this facility. No running pipes. It makes no sense that this is here. And no ICE detainees have even been deported yet from this facility. We're in day 10. They have to be deported within 14 days. And so one can't help but understand and conclude that this is a total, cruel political stunt meant to have a spectacle of political theater, and it's wasting taxpayer dollars and putting our ICE agents, our troops, and ICE detainees in jeopardy.
What we saw in there is very simple. We saw humans being held in cages. You heard it from Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, 32 people per cage. 3 toilets in each cage for these 32 people, and their drinking water comes from the toilet. People are on the toilet, you can't drink water. What we also heard, there was so much ambiguity on under what authority people are being held here, and whether this is a state facility or a federal facility. They kept state legislators out, trying to claim it's a federal facility. Then perhaps they would try to keep us out today if it came unannounced, saying it's a state facility. And what we heard very clear is ICE is giving them the directions from A to Z, where they put the beds, how everything is meant to be. So this is much like Baker in North Florida, where you have the state running this facility, but ICE is calling the shots. It is a federal detention facility, which means, and I'm really glad we were able to get this ironed out here, It means members of Congress are able to come here unannounced. And we will come here unannounced. Because, of course, like I said earlier today, a clean cage is still a cage. And they couldn't even keep this clean. I'll tell you, we couldn't even see the actual toilets that the detainees are using. Some of the biggest complaints we've heard is, yes, there's 3 toilets, but a lot of the time, only one is working. And they get backed up, feces being spread everywhere. And I asked them, I want to come in and I want to see the toilets. They said, we'll show you the toilets of a new unit that no one's in yet. That's not what I wanted to see. We wanted to see how it is right now, and we were unallowed to do it. Which means even with this invitation, so much was kept from us. We weren't able to see the medical facilities. They cited HIPAA, saying because of HIPAA, you can't see the medical facilities. Bullshit. We have done multiple ICE detention unannounced visits and been able to see the medical units. And why seeing the medical units are important is, of course, we want to know that the standard is high in case someone is having an issue. But also in many of these facilities, the segregation units and the isolation units are often the same units used for medical as well. We were unable to see those. Not just that, I also want to make sure I say this. There are so many attorneys across the country and across the state who have no idea how they can set up the appointments with the people that they're representing. I was given an email. It is legal@privacy6.com. They say if you email that, you'll be able to come here and see the person you're representing. That's what I was told by one of the head folks here. So again, that is legal@privacy6.com. 2 other quick things. The other thing I want to bring up is this place is loaded with third-party private security officers. This is not completely being run by federal agents or federal officers, not even state folks. Most of them are around the perimeter. When we went inside of the cage area, it was mainly private security company folks.
Democratic members of Congress expressing their concerns about Alligator Alcatraz. We heard from U.S. Representatives Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Darren Soto, and Maxwell Frost there. Well, we appreciate you joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus. We'll be back here at 2 o'clock with Florida Live and 4 o'clock with more Fox 35 News Plus. In the meantime, I'm going to leave you with this view of Truist Park in Atlanta as the countdown is on to the All-Star Game.
The order of the events for you, we haven't started yet. I'm going to do an introduction. I'm going to be followed by Dr. Saleh Mubarak with a more, we'll say a more expanded part of the introduction. It's a little historical background. Then Sister Heba Rahim, our Deputy Executive Director, she's going to conduct the body of the press release. A family member will be speaking immediately after her, and afterwards, then we will open for Q&A. Okay? That's the plan. Okay? Yeah, I know. He goes after me. So let's start standing. Let's stand. Okay. Yeah. 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 Everybody said. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of our Lord, the most gracious, the most merciful. My name is Wilfredo Ruiz. I am the Communications Director for the Florida chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. We're going to be conducting today a press conference following the brutal death that a Tampa, one of our Tampa sons, was subjected by Israeli settlers in what is known the West Bank area. He had a name. His name was Saifullah Musalet. He was a young adult. He was 20 years old at the time of his death. Today, I am accompanied by Dr. Saleh Mubarak, who will be speaking immediately after me, giving a little historical context as to precisely who are those that we're speaking about. I keep mentioning about Israeli settlers. Heba Rahim is our Deputy Executive Director of the Florida chapter of the CARE. Dr. Saleh Mubarak, I failed to mention, is a board member of the National CARE chapter in DC. And we have also a family member, Hussam Musalet. He raised Saifullah's father. So, to some extent, he was like a grandfather to Saifullah. May Allah have mercy on his soul. A couple of years ago, or a year ago, I tried to call the attention of the media, and I did get some media attention to the fact that some Israeli settlers went to a town whose name is Turmusaya in the West Bank. And they went there and burned down, arson, the residences of some of the Turmusaya residents that happened to be American citizens. Like the majority of the residents of that particular town of Turmusaya. It provoked some echo in the media. It reached the government, and our government sent a delegation from the State Department there to inquire how come people there to burn down the houses of American citizens abroad. The results of that investigation, if you don't know them, I don't know them either. That means that impunity reigned on that crime as it has reigned in other crimes committed on American citizens by the Israeli settlers that appear to have some kind of condition that are people untouchable by their government, untouchable by international justice, and untouchable by American justice. That cannot happen. The very essence and the main reason people have a government is for that institution to protect them. So this press conference is about if the United States of America is protecting its citizens abroad or not, or is protecting some citizens and some not, or perhaps is prioritizing non-citizens over our own citizens. Dr. Saleh Mubarak will give a little historical background in 3 or 4 minutes of who the settlers are. Because the settlers, not my opinion, or under international law, have been declared as illegal settlers. And to simplify it a little, these are people who are stealing land, I emphasize, grabbing and stealing land, not buying, not being given by any government, stealing land, occupying land, under the auspices and protection of the Israeli government and the protection of the Israeli Defense Forces. First, they started stealing land in the order of tens of thousands, later hundreds of thousands. Right now, there's an estimate almost 1 million settlers under the auspices and protection of the State of Israel, that not only now their crime is that they steal land and they are squatters, is that they are open and willing to knowingly go and burn down houses of Palestinians, disregarding if they are American citizens or not. And since they already tested that those levels of impunity could protect them even more, now they not only kill someone, but they beat them with a bat to death. They started by shooting, and they shot an American journalist with the cameras of the whole world on. And what happened to those? Nothing. And now, I hope and I pray that justice comes. Please, Dr. Saleh Mubarak.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome everyone. I don't know where to start, but I'm not going to focus on the settlers only, but the whole state of Israel started with gangs. If you go to the history, the Ergon, the Stern, Haganah, and they were doing this not only to the indigenous Palestinians, but even to the British occupiers who facilitated their coming. And we don't forget the King David Hotel blowing up in Jerusalem, which after that the British government declared David Ben Gurion, who is now named after the airport there, as a terrorist. But I want to go back even centuries before to show that this is not an issue between Jews and non-Jews. I came from Syria a long time ago. I haven't seen my country in 45 years. But we had Jewish community in Syria, in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Palestine, in everywhere. For centuries, we coexisted without any incident. In fact, if you look at the history of the Muslims and Jews in Spain, which was under the rules of the Muslims for like nearly 8 centuries, and when it ended and the Catholics defeated them, what happened to the Muslims and Sephardic Jews? They were forced to either convert or to leave. And what happened to those Jews? They left to Muslim land, to North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, and to Istanbul. And if you go now to Istanbul, you will see the Jewish community there who traces their ancestors to Spain. And if you you want to listen more about the Jewish history, Jewish Arab history, please listen to Professor Avi Schleim, Jewish Iraqi who lives in Britain, who documented how the Zionist gangs blew up Jewish synagogues and others in Arab countries to give impression that you're not safe there. They have been safe for centuries. And the history of Israel as a state is full of violations of United Nations resolutions, one after one after one. In fact, the very resolution that acknowledged or accepted Israel as a state in May of 1949 as a state, it was based on 2 conditions that neither of them was fulfilled. implementing a resolution 181 in 1947 and implementing resolution 194 of 1948, which said that those Palestinian refugees have the right to return. It's a violation after violation, and the would be, and I said, wait a minute, I made a mix-up between the identities. Then silence will reign in. The issue, to me, is not just territory. The issue is the recognition of the equal value of the human of the human life. It doesn't matter what your color of skin, what's your religion, what's your ethnicity, what's your background. Once we accept that all humans have the same value, I think we will, come to a beginning of resolving this issue that has not been resolved. And I'm optimistic, and I'm seeing more and more Jewish intellectuals, Jewish brothers and sisters coming to our side. I can stand here, and out of my unorganized memory, I can name at least 50 of them. I named Avi Schleim. I can mention Gideon Levy, Ilan Pape, and Noam Chomsky. Many. A list goes on and on. They realize that this state is not for the good welfare of the Jewish people. It's a Zionist colonial project that is not in the welfare of everyone. And I believe in one-state solution, and that one state should have equal right to everyone, regardless of their background.
Thank you very much. There's also a chair here at the front if somebody would like to fill it before we start. I'd like to take just a quick moment to also recognize the people on my right to your left. We'll start with Brother Omar Saleh, who is the lead attorney for our Civil Rights Department, Brother Khalid Al-Hamzawi, who is a board of directors for CARE Florida, and our sister Alina Hussein, who is a staff attorney with the Civil Rights Department. My name is Hiba Rahim, Hibarahim. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for CARE Florida. We're gathered here today, incredibly heartbroken and grieving the murder of Saifullah Musallit, a 20-year-old American citizen and resident of Tampa. Saifullah was born in Port Charlotte, Florida. He grew up in Tampa. He grew up between Port Charlotte and Tampa, and he was a young man with dreams and with plans and with a future, but that future was cut short because his dreams were ended when he was brutally beaten to death by illegal Israeli settlers in the occupied West Bank. Saif's mother and father will never get to hug their son again. His siblings will never hear him laugh again, and his family will never see him again. Saifullah went to visit his family this summer. Just weeks ago, he was on their ancestral homeland, and he was trying to protect a piece of their land from being taken and stolen by illegal Israeli occupiers. But a mob of Israeli settlers ambushed them, surrounded them, and ambushed him and the two others that were with him, and they beat two of them to death with clubs and bats. Saifullah had more than his land stolen. He had his life stolen at the hands of people that our government continues to fund and protect. Some media reports have indicated that there were clashes between two groups of people, and I want you to know that these are lies. These are lies. There were no clashes. These are the same lies we hear every time a guilty party is guilty of monstrous activity, like what we saw with Saifullah's death. They throw around triggering words to confuse people. They throw around triggering words like terrorism and clashes and fighting to build support, but it is time for us to open our eyes and understand the nature of Israeli aggression and to say enough. There is no confusion in this story. This was a cold-blooded murder, and our government needs to remove the curtain of deception from its eyes and our eyes and demand a stance. Take a stance, and we demand accountability. I want to point out that this is not an isolated tragedy. There's a devastating pattern of Americans being killed in Israel, brutalized and murdered with impunity by Israeli forces and settlers. Omar Rabia, 14 years old, New Jersey. Shireen Abu Aqla, Omar Asad, Rachel Corey, and now Saifullah Musallat. We add his name, unfortunately, to the list of all Americans, all killed, and none of their killers were held accountable. This weekend, I wondered, once again, where is the outrage from our government? Where is the accountability? Where is the justice for a family that is grieving the same type of justice that another family would receive if their child was killed like this? Let's be clear about one point. If Saif was killed by anyone else or in another country, there would already be investigations. There would already be attempts for arrest and calls for arrest and outrage in Washington. But our U.S. State Department said they want to remain silent out of respect for his grieving family. We're not asking, and his family's not asking for silence. We're asking for accountability. So if you want to respond to the family's needs, then speak up. Speak out. It should not be that your passport only protects you if you come from a certain religion or belong to a certain ethnicity. We're calling on President Trump, the U.S. State Department, and the Department of Justice to find those who committed this crime, to arrest them, and to prosecute them under U.S. law for the murder of an American citizen. And we ask every journalist, every elected official, and every American with a conscience, do not let Saifullah's name fade away. Say it, share it, and cover it. Cover it in your reporting. Demand justice in his name. The pain that his family is going through is one that no family should ever experience. To our local Hillsborough County officials, to our mayors, to our county commissioners, to our city council members, one of your residents, an American who lived in Tampa and worked in Tampa was brutally beat to death. We call on you to publicly condemn this murder, condemn Sayfullah's tragic death, make a public statement, be brave, take the path of moral consciousness, be upright, reach out to his family, attend the vigil that we're planning on Saturday, July 19th, in remembrance of this beautiful young man, and stand in solidarity with a grieving family and the Muslim community. I will now introduce a family member, his uncle, who is so brave to come here today. I had reached out to multiple family members and invited them to come, but the grief is so unbearable to know and hear. And this is not the first family member of their family who died or who's been beaten. It happens that it's the first American that I'm aware of, and that's why we're reporting it. But every soul is a human soul, and every soul deserves to live. So I will introduce Hussam Musallat, his uncle, who, as was mentioned earlier, raised him, and he will speak to him as a person. Thank you very much.
I don't know, it's kind of, I mean, Sayfullah was just a very rare soul. He was very loving, caring, and I mean, just like any other 20-year-old. He would go out with his friends. Nighttime, he would go and after work, Wawa Run, he would call it, watch comedy. He was just so, I mean, it's hard to explain. He would come to my house always and come to his grandmother and give her a hug, kiss her hand, hug, gave us, but he was just, I don't know, it's kind of, he would just, one time we took him to a game, the Royals against Tampa Bay, and he was so excited, but then all of a sudden we look over, he was asleep. But he was just that kind. He was just so, and for him to be killed by illegal Israeli settlers, protecting his own land for no reason, just because nobody would step up and help him. After 3 hours, the IDF, illegal Israeli settlers, stopped the ambulance from coming to help him. And when he was brought back, his brother helped him out. He saw his brother saw him take his last breath. He could not, he was just gagging because of the pain, because of the beating. It was, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, he was just like a regular kid. I mean, to me, I remember him when he was born. He grew up in Port Charlotte. He went to school in Port Charlotte. I mean, everybody knew him. Everybody, whoever met him, just fell in love with him because he was just so, just loving, respectful. And then to be taken away by the way he was murdered, illegal Israeli settlers. And then the IDF just stands there and watches them. They give them the way to go in there and just do whatever they want but nobody says anything to them. More than that, I mean, what can I say? I mean, he's just going to be missed and loved. I mean, I just don't know what else to say. Thank
you. Yes, we're open for.
Can you spell the brother's name?
Yes.
H-E-S-E-A-M.
The uncle's name is Hussam Musallat, H-E-S-A-M. Last name Musallat, M-U-S-A-L-L-E-T. And we're open now for questions. Any questions? Yes.
Just housekeeping here. If the itinerary isn't written down, we go one by one and say names, titles, and spell names.
Sure. Sure. You want to go?
Omar Saleh, attorney at CARE Florida.
Omarsaleh.
Khaled Al-Hamzawi, Khaled Alhamzawi, Care Florida board member.
Alina Hussain, staff attorney with Care Florida, ALINAHUSAIN.
Our government is good to support that illegal activity taking over a generation, taking place in over a generation. Then our government should be at least good to assure the very essence of what the governments are for, the protection of their own citizens. We're calling for no more than the protection of our government to our citizens. And those who murder our citizens here or abroad, that our government does everything within their reach to bring them to justice. Our government have been capable historically to even kill American citizens that they consider a threat to the United States. If our government has been capable of doing that to protect us, we expect no less than to bring those thugs and criminals to justice. Yes, the other question, please.
Can we have the uncle talk about, we know he owns an ice cream shop.
Sure.
Say does, and when did he start it? It was his dream to be an entrepreneur. If you could come up to the microphone, talk a little bit about that ice cream shop.
Yeah, he bought that about a year ago. He's always looking to, he wanted to be a businessman. Always, ever since he was young. He opened up that when he was planning on expanding, finding him a wife, having a family, and that was his dream, but it was just cut short. 20 years old. It was just cut short of, unjustly. There is no. There's somebody needs to be held accountable. He had a life. Like I said, he'd get up in the middle of the night. He would go out for a Wawa. They called it the Wawa run, just to get a sandwich, sit down with his friends, and then and then that ice cream shop was his passion. It's the best I can. He was phenomenal. He was.
Yes, stay here.
One follow-up and then one other question. What was the name of the ice cream shop?
Ice Creamin'.
Ice Creamin'?
Ice Creamin'.
And what are you afraid that the media might get wrong about what happened?
He was. kind of hard to. I mean, the media always tries to play it that sometimes like he's the bad one, but he was just there defending land that belonged to him and his father from, Israeli settlers that were just coming to steal it from him. And he was just there standing there to stop them from coming in. And then they, you saw what happened.
Did he go over there with the intent of having to defend that land, or was this something that arose while he was there?
No, he went there to visit his mother and his family, his friends. He was just there. He went there to try to find, like I said, he wanted to get married. He said he'd find him a nice wife. But he was just there to visit, to have fun. Go out in the mountains. They make barbecue. Him and friends, and just like any other 20-year-old would do.
What do you know about the interaction that led to this?
I don't. It's illegal settlements. I mean, it's just settlers. There's nothing really that provokes it. They just do what they do because they can.
I know he was busy with the ice cream shop, but you've mentioned Wawa runs. What else did he like to do in Tampa?
He loved watching comedies. He would go out driving. He'd go to the beach. Things like that, just like a normal kid.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Do you have information on how many Americans are being held in Israeli jails and prisons?
Not at this time. Do we have, sister? Not at this time. I can provide it to you later.
I understand that non-Jewish people in Israel and the occupied territories, and those are generally referred to as Palestinians, sometimes as Israeli Arabs, don't have full citizenship, as we've been saying.
Yes.
Israeli citizens within the state of Israel that we call inside the Green Line, not
Exactly.
the occupied territories, have the right to carry Uzis.
Yes.
Whereas Israeli Arabs, people who are not Jewish, do get to vote in elections, but they do not have the right to carry weapons.
They have specific traffic lanes for them, another lane, traffic lanes. It's a system of apartheid. And our media, our politicians, our elected officials are always so shy of calling the things like they are when it refers to the state of Israel. Perhaps in the case of the politicians, we understand it because most of their campaigns are tied up with AIPAC compromises that they need to do, that if you're going to get the AIPAC monies for your campaign, you cannot criticize the policies of the state of Israel. But absent of that, the illegalities that the state of Israel commits, imagine their prime minister is a fugitive today of the International Criminal Court. What I'm saying is not CARE's opinion. It's not the Palestinians' opinion. There is a court, an International Criminal Court, that is in charge of observing that the countries of this planet behave and conduct themselves within the parameters of protecting the human rights. Protecting the hospitals from being bombed in a war zone. Protecting the churches from being bombed in the war zone. Protecting the mosques from being bombed in the war zone. Protecting the shelters from being bombed in the war zones. Protecting you journalists from being killed. Over 179 of you have been murdered by the state of Israel with total impunity. Total impunity, not half impunity, total impunity. So when the International Criminal Courts observe that and have evidence of that, they order the arrest of those enablers of that international war crimes, and the main enabler is Benjamin Netanyahu, who was here welcomed with a red carpet in the White House a couple of weeks ago. We live in a bubble with a perspective that is this Israeli-American perspective, that is not the perspective that the rest of the over 170 nations of the world are seeing America and Israel behave. Or do you think the rest of the planet do not see America as complicit of the Israeli war crimes that have been denounced by the International Criminal Court? Yes.
Would you like to comment on the recent opening of the Extend drone factory in Mango within Hillsborough County that's touted to be able to produce 3,000 drones for Israel?
I'm very glad to address it. This is a portion of what these governments, the local governments, do to enable the state of Israel aggressions towards Palestinians. For example, Palm Beach County sends hundreds of millions of dollars in Israeli bonds, our tax money, in Israeli bonds, so that Israel can enable the war that they're enabling. So from our local governments to the White House, they are all enablers of these type of crimes that, unfortunately, we still too shy to call out. And perhaps our grandsons, our granddaughters will ask you, when these war crimes were happening, and you were a teacher or you were a reporter, what were you doing? The same questions that we asked when the Nazis were exterminating the Jews. What were the people doing when this was happening? What were the journalists doing? What were the politicians denouncing? That they enable this Holocaust. Same questions our future generations will ask of us. What were we all doing when Israel was killing 60,000 children with total impunity? Children that you don't need to adhere the word innocent, because by definition, children are innocent. What were we doing? What were we calling on Israel when they were killing 50,000 children? This is another one of those 50,000 children, some in Gaza, some in the West Bank. But it's a pattern of crimes, war crimes, thieves, stealing land, total impunity. But our reality, like I said, is not the reality. Just tune in Euronews. Tune in tonight and see what Euronews is reporting on the Israeli-Gaza conflict. And you will see how dissimilar Western news across the ocean are reporting and portraying the realities of Gaza. Watch it tonight. Euronews is free.
Spell it.
Euronews, E-U-R-O News. And they give it in every language, like in 12 different languages. With different, total different reality. People being censored. Doctors being fired from schools if they criticize, from hospitals if they criticize the state of Israel. Attorneys losing their jobs in the law firms here in Florida if they stand for the people of Gaza. Our student organizations trying to be shut down. You see, it's a systemic silence that they want to buy from the people, from the students, from the media, from everywhere. Some are easier to buy. Those are the politicians. That's why we see that they are very swift in not providing negative statements, because they will lose immediately campaign money. Yes.
Yes, do you call upon the Hillsborough County Commission to close that killer drone factory right here in Hillsborough County?
Of course, anything that enables the occupation of Israel on Palestinian territories and the oppression that Israel continues to do on the Palestinian people, we need to oppose. From that to the Israeli bonds, to the monies and logistics, to our armed forces being trained by criminal armed forces. What do we want our armed forces? What good can our armed forces learn from the Israeli armed forces? What good? I don't want to divert the attention of what brought us today. It's a life of a Tampa youth, American youth, who was murdered brutally by Israeli settlers. And we are praying that our government does something about it. And announcing investigations, believe me, will not suffice. Because I know that after some pressure, the experience tells us that after some pressure by the Department of State, the government of Israel say, oh, we are doing a deep, thorough investigation that will result on the same result of every other murder of American citizens by Israeli, either IDF forces or settlers, in absolutely total impunity. And this needs to stop at some point. And if this government went and gained the White House under the theme of we are American first, and we're going to protect America first, and we don't want need of the NATO, and we are first and first.